Hey everyone! So I decided I'm going to teach everybody how to saddle a horse today, so stay tuned. So first things first, we get our halters and we go out to where our horses are. And we catch them. There's my donkey. This is Glencheck and that's Sarley back there. Whenever you go catch them, you want to hide the halters behind your back so they think you're not catching them. I don't know if this works or not, but it seems to. So when you catch a horse, the first thing you want to do is take the long end of your lead rope and put it around their neck so they can't run away. And then you take the noseband, which is this doubled up piece. Yeah, you can just tow whenever you're holding a halter. And you slip it on their nose. And you make sure it's nice and snug. Then you reach around and flip up the longer piece from the other side. And then there's a hole right here that you're gonna go through with the piece. Make sure your halter stays snug this entire time. And you put your long piece around the back to create this little circle. Then you stick it through and just pull it tight. And then grab your lead rope and walk them off. So once you get your horse walked to where you're going to saddle him, you have to tie him up. And to do that, you just flip your rope over the high bar. And then you go around, make another O like we did at the halter, and stick this through and make sure you don't get your fingers in. And then you pull it tight, take this in through, and pull that through. So that way whenever the horse jerks on it, if he decides to get bored and play with it, he can't break loose and it'll just make his knot a little bit tighter. Next is the fun part. Now we start grooming him, and he's shedding a lot, so this takes a little bit longer than it normally would once he's all shedded off. So to start off with, we use this comb. I'm really not sure what it's called. I call it a shedder because you pull it out like this and you just rake it through their fur. And then we also use a bristled brush to brush off all the excess hair and stickers that we miss. So that way whenever you put the saddle on him, he doesn't try to buck or anything because there's something uncomfortable on under his saddle. Kind of like if you were to have a sticker in your shoe, you would not like that. Same for the horses. You also want to remember to brush underneath his stomach where the cinch goes. So that way whenever you tighten everything up, there's nothing getting stuck into his skin. And once you've brushed out both sides of the horse's body, you're going to go to his mane. So this is a pretty ratted up mess. So I use some stuff called Shoshin, and it just makes it a lot softer and easier to brush out. So it's kind of like detangler spray, like what your mom used to put in your hair before she brushed all the tangles out whenever you're little. So now you just go and you start from the bottom of his mane and you just work your way up. And now you do the same thing with their tail. And the tails generally take a lot more because they're more ratty because they bat them around all the time to fight off the flies. And whenever you're brushing through their tail, you might feel like you're pulling hard, but you're really not. They can handle a lot of pain. Like, for example, go get your hairbrush and brush it through your hair. Like your scalp might be kind of tender, but they can handle at least 5 times as much pain as we can whenever we're pulling on their hair. So, like this might hurt us, but it's not hurting him. And you can tell because he's not trying to fight or anything. He's just standing here hanging out. And then another part about basic horse care before you get on them and saddle them to go ride is you need to clean out their hooves, which can get pretty nasty sometimes. And whenever it gets like dirt and other matter gets packed into their hooves, it can cause a lot of pain for the horses and make them become unsound, which is like whenever we have a sprained ankle, we're unsound because we can't walk 100% like we used to. So to clean out the horses, we use this fancy thing called a hoof pick, and it's pretty handy. It can be used for a lot of things like a screwdriver. His feet, you can kind of tell they're a little bit uncared for, and that's just because they've been off all winter and they need to be trimmed up by the farrier. So we'll get that done soon, but this is basic care that we can do by ourselves to keep our horses' feet in check. So to start off, you're gonna Choose one foot to pick up, and you just kind of squeeze their tendons, and you just pick their foot up. And then once you have their foot picked up, you clean all of the gunk out of it, which there's a lot. You'll see it fall out. And whenever you're doing this, you want to be sure not to hit their frog, because that's a very, very tender part of their hoof. You can see in his hoof, right here is the frog, and this is like the outer side of the hoof that grows like your fingernail. So if you look at your fingernail and the white part that's on there, that would be this. And down here, like where this white stuff is, that's also like part of your fingernail, and it just overgrows, and that's what farriers trim off. And now that we've cleaned out all 4 of his hooves, it's time to go get the saddle and get him saddled up and ready to ride. Okay, so now we're gonna put the saddle blanket on the horse. Whenever you do that, you always want to saddle them on the left-hand side of the horse. So to start out, there's this leather patch, and that's gonna go on top of your horse's withers right here. So you just take it, sit it up there, make sure it's even, and it's sitting on top of his withers, just a little bit past maybe, and it's all good. Okay, so now we're gonna put the saddle on the horse. So the saddle horn goes to the front, right about where this little leather patch is, and then the butt of your saddle is gonna go to the butt of the horse as well. So to put a saddle on, what I do is I put it on my right hand hip and I kind of just lunge it up. A lot of other people can do it different ways, but this is what works for me. And once it's on, you want to just make sure all of these little straps are down. And then you go around to the other side and make sure they're out of the saddle as well. And then we're going to pull the breast collar down, leave it lay, and we're going to let the cinches down. And make sure everything's tangle free, nice and loose, and in the right place. And to tell if the cinch is in the right place, all you have to do is just kind of lay it down. And if it's right here behind his leg, there's an inch or 2 there. And that's so he doesn't rub here and give him sores. And now that you have everything checked, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go up here and form just a little bit of a pocket underneath the saddle blanket. See how this pocket's right there? It's like you can stick your hand under it so there's not as much pressure right here. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the breast collar. And a lot of people start with the front cinch first, but the reason I start with the breast collar is because once you cinch this down, it's kind of hard to get this strap underneath it. So this is just personal preference, but it seems to work pretty good for me. And you want your breast collar to be pretty snug and tight, and then you just tuck away all your straps so you don't have anything loose laying around. And then you go down here and you get your cinch. And I normally flip my stirrup up so it's out of the way. And my cinches, I loop them up a special way, so all I have to do is grab the back side, stick it in the top of this, and just pull it all the way through, and then you go back through, loop it in again. But this time you're going to go down here to the second hole, stick your strap through. And he's a little bit short gutted right here, and my cinch is kind of long, and so is my latigo. So I go through and I loop it around twice so I can get it good and tight. And the reason he's bobbing his head is because he thinks he's too fat to be ridden, but he's not. He's just a pain in the butt. So this is kind of like whenever you put on jeans and they're too tight. That's what it feels like for horses. Not the most comfortable. And then whenever you're done, you just flip it up here, and normally there's going to be a hole here, like one of these that you'll put this into so the strap stays good. But because he hasn't been moving around much, he's all aired up and has water log right here. But as soon as you walk him around, you'll be able to tighten it up and put it in the hole. And then you take your back cinch. This is a cinch that's not really needed, but it works really good for like rope horses and work horses, just because it's something extra to help keep your saddle on. And then you just tuck that strap away, keep it there, and you set your stirrup down, and your horse is almost all the way saddled. Then once you're done, you come behind a couple straps with this breast collar, and you loop it on, and you tuck your strap in again. Then your breast collar actually hooks down here on this little hook. So all I have to do is flick it up and go under, and it's nice and tight. Saddles can vary in weight. Mine's about 40 to 50 pounds. So for that in relation, you should get up around your house, find something that weighs what you think might be 40 to 50 pounds. For example, hey, come here. If you have a medium-sized dog, a little bit bigger than Ed here, that should weigh about 40 or 50 pounds. And that's about how heavy of a thing we put on the back of our horses, plus your body weight. So they're pretty cool animals because they can hold that much weight. Okay, so now we're gonna start and put the bridle on so that we can ride him. There's actually two parts to the bridle. I use a tie down so my horse doesn't throw his head up in the air whenever I'm riding him, which can cause a lot of issues. And then there's just the regular bridle. This slips over his ears and the bit goes in his mouth so you can have better control of him. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna come over here, you're gonna untie your horse. Some people don't like to untie their horse, but I know that my horse is trustworthy and will stand away from the fence and not run off. So we undo the halter that we put on them earlier whenever we caught them. And you just kind of slide it down to their neck so in case they do run off, you at least have some sort of control and are able to stop them, hopefully. So now first, we put the tie down on them, and the noseband just rests on their nose. Pick this up and you just tuck their ears underneath it, and then you have a tie down on them. And this should be clipped up. I'm not going to worry about it because we're going to clip it underneath where the breast collar goes in just a second. Now we put the bridle on. So you just slide it around his face and you allow him to get the bit in his mouth. And you slide the curb chain back behind his muzzle and you make sure everything works. And then you do the same exact thing as you did with the tie down and you slide his ears under the bridle. And you adjust everything so that nothing's in his face, nothing's hurting him. And if you really want to, you can check in his mouth by putting your fingers to the back to make sure the bit's on top of his tongue. You probably couldn't see that, but it was. Okay, so we're gonna just walk our horse a little ways. Walk him to where we're gonna be riding him. We're gonna be riding him right here today. So now, we're gonna come over here where the cinch is and make sure that he's nice and tight since we didn't hook it in a hole. I like to personally use my shoulder because I'm kind of short in a way. I use my shoulder, lift it up, and then there's a hole right here that we're gonna just poke in there. And we grab the strap so that way it pulls it tight. And then you take the slack, put it through there. I like to line up my straps, and then everything's ready to go. And now all you have left to do is slide your reins over their head. You put your foot in the stirrup, hold your reins, and you're ready to go for a ride.